Hi, and welcome back to Y Slice Unplugged with Mike. All right, so yesterday we talked about basically algorithmic thinking, how you can start taking a task and breaking it into subtasks and ordering it, and introducing some controls and things like that into this activity. So today what we're going to do is something slightly different. We're going to actually have you choose your own adventure. So these choose your own adventure books were popular, might still be popular. And what you're going to do is you're going to start off either with a concept unit of interest to you, so grounded in reality, or if you'd prefer, create a fantasy. You can do anything at all. So option A might be more relevant immediately for things that you want to do, but option B might be a little bit easier to do just as a sample without too much guidance. So let's take a look. Here is your task, and we're going to keep this pretty short as opposed to yesterday's in-depth instruction. Today we're going a different route. So here's your task. Most narratives, most things that we write are very sequential in nature. They go straight through, but that is not how we think, and it's really not how we can gain the most power out of a story, out of a set of tasks. So first off, your 2 to 3 page narrative should not just be read by a reader straight through. The very first thing I want you to include in your narrative is some option for the reader to make a choice, right? Based off of the reader's interest, they should be able to choose between reading segment A of your narrative or segment B of your narrative. You should probably figure out a strategy at the end of segment A for them to skip over segment B. Not a requirement, but something for you to consider. It should happen. Okay. The other option that I'd like you to place in your narrative is I want you to have the reader come to another decision that they have to make. If they choose one of those decisions, A, they have to go back to an earlier point in the narrative and have to reread some portion. Otherwise, if they choose B, I want them to continue on with the narrative. So those are the first two things I want you to introduce into your narrative. The third thing I want you to introduce into your narrative is basically this idea of counting within a narrative. So a really famous example of this is the 99 bottles of liquid on a wall, where basically you start off with a number. So in that case, it's 99. And you read some statement, and then you change the number. In that song, it's by 1. But you could do it by anything, right? It could be a change based off of any property at all, anything you want. So it could be changing the number by some other factor. So instead of 1, it could be 2, 3, 4, whatever. It could also be a division of the number, right? You could have something divide in half, right? So you could have a story where you start off with 10 of something, and you split half of it with the first friend you see, and then the next friend you see, you split it in half again. You can manipulate the numbers however you want. And so while some condition about that number is true, so maybe it's while it's greater than 0, right? Like the bottle song, you continue going back and doing something over and over again. When that condition is no longer true, so once it hits 0 in the song, what do? Well, you go on to some other part of the story. All right. So that's the third one, and that's probably one of the more complicated ones. So that one might take a little bit of time to figure out how to incorporate. The fourth option here is very similar to the very first one, the A-B choice. Except for, I want you to have it so that when you get to this choice, one of the choices is impossible. So the choice, while the reader might think they have a choice, they will always choose one of the options. So there'll be a segment of your narrative that never gets read. And every single time, the reader will skip over that to go to the B portion, or in this case, the exclamation, never reading A. I mean, they might see it, but they'll never get to that part of your narrative. And then the last thing I want you to make sure is that in your narrative, there is a definite start and a definite end. So there should be a starting point and an ending point. Everything else in the middle, the whole rest of the narrative, can be unique based off of the choices made. And the end could be, it could just be the end. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that everything has to have happened the same way, but there needs to be a definite starting point and stopping point. Consider it like a maze. Many different choices inside, but the start and end are fixed. Okay, so that's 5 elements I want you to try to embed in the narrative, and we'll see you in a little bit.